Hi, dear listener. Welcome to the Young Changemakers podcast, an initiative from Global Changemakers. Your co-hosts, Sophie, George, and William are very happy to have you join us today. Over this first season, we'll show you the incredible impact of youth and hopefully inspire you to take action too. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you're ready, let's go!
Hi there, dear listeners. Welcome to episode 7 of the Young Changemakers podcast. My name is Sophie. I'm the co-host from Switzerland, and I'm very, very excited to have you guys join me on this episode. It is currently the 19th of December when I record this, and so very, very close to the festive season. I will be celebrating Christmas with my family, and it's always a period I really, really enjoy. And I'd love to hear from you guys what your plans are for this holiday season, and what do you guys celebrate? Let us know on our Instagram page at We Are GCM, as I'm curious to know what you guys do for the end of the year and beginning of next year. Oh my gosh, it's almost 2020, a new decade. Have you guys already started your New Year's resolutions? I'm always very bad at keeping them personally. I hope some of you can relate to this. Please don't leave me alone in this struggle. Anyway, enough about me and my deep passion for Christmas. I'd like to present you the interviewee for this episode. His name is Kiki Achyana. He is originally from Indonesia and is a passionate disability advocate and has been part of several projects related to disability issues in his home country. In 2014, he founded Batam, a therapy center for children with autism. He has also worked as the managing director of Putra Kami Foundation for the past 4 years, providing education to more than 450 children with disabilities. More recently, though, Kiki founded a startup, Parakerja, a platform for people with disabilities whose aim is to create an inclusive work ecosystem by training and connecting future employees and employers. Parakerja has empowered trainees to pursue their dreams of becoming teachers, administrators, graphic designers, artists, and more. This is actually what we will mostly talk about during our interview today. We talk a lot about the topic of disabilities, which personally is a topic I was not very familiar about, and Kiki is quite the expert in it, and so I hope you'll learn at least as much as I have learned through my chat with him. And very exciting news. A few days before the episode launches, Parakerja actually just launched nationwide in Indonesia. So go give them your support, and it's a great initiative to look into. One thing I would like to mention before we start the interview, and it's a bit of a trigger warning. Most of the interview, we talk about the topic of disabilities, but by the end of the interview, I asked Kiki why he went into the field of disabilities, and he explained to me why, and this sort of links to topics of bullying, and we briefly mention the passing away of one of his close friends. And so if you are uncomfortable with that, you can just tune in the next episode, or I will also include in the show notes exactly the time this starts, so you can listen up to that point if you feel comfortable. We wanted to keep this in the episode because we think it's important to talk about these topics and for our guests to be able to be vulnerable and create a safe space for them to do so on the show. So this is why we decided to keep this in. But just a fair warning, if these are topics you do not feel comfortable with, just so that you know. Another thing I'd like to mention, and after that we can start with the show, is that we just launched a brand new resource called the Facilitation Tools for Changemakers. So this is a set of tools that include icebreakers, energizers, and team building exercises. So this is great if you're working on facilitating a workshop or just within your team. This is a great resource for you to look into. And why I'm mentioning it on the podcast is that our listeners actually get 20% off. So if you use the discount code YCM listeners, all in caps, all together, you'll get 20% off the tools. So go have a look at that. I'm going to include all the information in the show notes. And now that I've talked enough, I'd like to start the interview with Kiki Achyana. Enjoy. Hi, Kiki. Welcome. How are you?
Hello, Sophie. I'm good.
Great to have you on the show. How was your day?
It was great in Indonesia right now. And yeah, a lot of work for my startup too. So cool.
We were just talking about the weather with Kiki before we started the interview. And
Yeah.
I was telling him how jealous I am that it's warm right now in Indonesia.
And I'm also jealous of UK that you will start your winter soon.
I know, yeah. Yeah, and you're going to Japan apparently. How exciting.
2 weeks later. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So again, thank you for coming on the show. It's really great to have you. And I'd like to start with your favorite quote.
Okay, so my favorite quotes that I believe since I was in junior high school was you can if you can say I can. Like I hear it from my teacher actually. She said that yeah, you have to believe yourself, that if you believe yourself that you can say to yourself that I can, yeah, you will do it very well. So like until today that quote is still on my mind. Like every day I feel like I just want to give up. I am so tired of all these activities and all of this advocacy, but well, then deep inside my heart that I say I can. You can, Kiki, Kiki, you can. And then like, yeah, well, I prove it that I can. And yeah, it changed a lot of things on my life, that just by saying to yourself that you can do it, well, you will do it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, it's really important to believe in yourself, as well as having a support system outside, of course. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Is this an Indonesian saying, or where you were saying your teacher told you?
I don't really remember, and I never hear it from any public figures, but I hear it from the first time from my teacher in junior high school. So yeah,
You know
I know
what?
it from her.
I don't think I've ever heard Indonesian. How would you say it in Indonesian or in your mother tongue? That quote.
That quote will be, kamu bisa jika kamu bisa mengatakan aku bisa.
That's so
So in
nice.
Indonesia, it's like that. So aku bisa, I can, and
Aku bisa.
you will. Yeah, aku bisa, kamu bisa.
That's beautiful. Wow, I love that quote. It's great. And so this is actually a
Yeah.
good transition into what you do for a living, Kiki. So you're the founder and CEO of Parakerja. I hope I said it correctly.
Yes,
Yes, and can you
you
tell
said
me?
correctly, Parakerja.
Yes, thank you. um, I'm so proud of myself right now.
Yes, of course you can say it in Indonesian.
And does it actually mean something in Indonesian?
So, Parakerja means actually it comes from two words, para and kerja. So, para means empowered, able, and equal. So, this is actually the word related to the people with disabilities that you know that like in Olympic, there's a Paralympic. So, para for people with disabilities, right? So, we use the same word of that, para kerja. So, kerja means work. So, we empower people with disability. We uh, help them to get to the job. We help them by providing the training and also connecting people with disability to the job provider, and then help the companies, all the small medium enterprises to also be inclusive and understand about people with disability who will work there, and also to be accessible in every aspect of the job environment. So Parakerja means uh, work for equality, and it's also the same with our vision and also with our tagline that we want to make a job as equality for everyone.
I see. That's now that you make the link between para, like, and para kerja, like I see the link with Paralympics, of course.
Yeah,
I see. I didn't know it was from there.
we give the same opportunities to everyone. Yes, with also with people with disabilities.
I see. And so how did you get started, or why did you start your organization?
Okay, so before I start Parakerja as a startup that give the training and also connect people with disability to job opportunities. Before this, I work as the manager, director of a foundation that providing education for around 450 children with disabilities in 4 cities in Indonesia, especially in Riau Islands province. It was in Batam, Tanjung Pinang, and Tanjung Balai. So when I worked there, I I and the team, all of the teachers gave the best education for children with disabilities, right? So we teach them a lot of skills. We teach them about mathematics, biology, and kind of things. But then after that, we see one of the thing that becomes a problem in the future after we give the best education to them, and then they graduate, and then like it's hard for them even they already have skill to get a job. So we see the problem was that even children with disabilities, they already have the skill to work, but if we don't give the education to the job opportunity or the job provider too, it will be like a problem. I mean, it's not connecting. So after that, we see that this is also an opportunity to to help more people with disability to get a job, to have a good good quality of life by giving them the equal opportunities. And also, this is the digital era, so we use the technology to do the training. We also do the training online, and also we have to look for the job opportunities for people with disability by using our apps that will launch nationally in Indonesia later in December 19th. So uh, it is what we see that a lot of people can can be equal, that we have to do it now.
I see. So you saw that there was a gap after school, and that's what you're aiming to bridge. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. And this gap, is it something that is specific to Indonesia, or do you see it around the world as well?
So I think it's not just happening in Indonesia, because when I travel to another countries and I have a discussion with some people with disability in there, it's also happened there. I mean, the society needs to be educated too. I mean, we need to spread more awareness to the society about accessibility, about disability. Yeah, even for the basic issue like what is disability, like who are the people with disabilities and what people with disability can do. That's the basic awareness that people need to know. And then like a lot of people don't really understand about that. So when we want to advocate about the accessibility, about the equal opportunities, about the same wage of people with disability who work, it's like, yeah, still a struggle to work on it. But because I'm Indonesian and I see this as a challenge for Indonesian, especially because I live in Batam. This is the border of Indonesia to Singapore and Malaysia. I feel like I am the guard of the border to make Singaporean or Malaysian, when come to Indonesia, they can see that, oh, people with disability in Batam or Indonesia get same opportunities with non-disabled people. And I feel like we have to do it to not just for people with disabilities but also for our country. But a lot of countries have to do it together.
I see. And I want to follow up on the part you said about awareness raising and a few questions you mentioned. So yeah, what is a disability? What's the definition of it?
So actually, disability comes because of the accessibility. I mean, if people with, I give the example, like if people with wheelchair have the accessibility for the ramp that they can access to go to the higher places or get a lift, actually they are not disabled because they can do it. And also like if the deaf people can have a communication with the sign language, they can be in a community and they are not disabled anymore, right? So like actually it's just based on the perspective that it's not about someone is able to do that or not able to do that, but how we provide the accessibility so people can do that, right? So back to your question, what is disability is, I think, and based on my perspective, it's all about the ability to for people to do something, right? And if and people can do something if there is any opportunities and also accessibility for that, like people with down syndrome or autism or ADHD, they can also do some of work, and we cannot see their disability if they we give them any accessibility and opportunity to do that, right? So yeah, related to the job opportunity, that's what my answer is.
Okay. So what you're saying, and please tell me if I didn't understand this correctly, but what makes or what could lead to a disability is not actually what the person has, but rather the environment that they're
Yeah,
in, right? That, like you say, if it's stairs instead of a ramp, then that makes the disability, not the actual person,
yeah,
right? That's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I feel like that's also a way we could us and our governments can work on policies that are a bit more inclusive, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And another one of the questions you mentioned is, what can we do to, help people with disabilities or make it more inclusive? What would be your answer for that?
Okay, so like in Parakerja, like we give the job to the people and give the training for them based on what they are passionate about and what they can do. I mean, for the blind people, they cannot see, but they can talk, right? So we do the training for them for the customer service. Like they just need to talk. They need to understand about the question and answer what the customer needs, right? And then like people in wheelchair, there's a lot of thing that they can do, like like they can do the data entry, they can do the design in on their laptop and a lot of things. And also like people with autism, we have trained them and put them to the school to job, to have a job as the administrator, that they can be a typist, be the administrator, and a lot of things. We just need to see what their needs and what their accessibility that they need, and a lot of things they can do.
Yeah, so focus on what they can do rather than what they cannot. Okay.
Yes.
And you mentioned that through your program, you try to find the passion of this person. How do you do that?
Okay, so for that uh, we have to approach them in how they see the world. I mean, especially like the deaf people, that we ask them to know about their perspective, about their personality. Yeah, of course we have to ask them in sign language, and like and we can understand their world, what they are passionate about, when we have a bond with them. And then like, yeah, we can ask them and a lot of things, like what from my experience, I ask a deaf person about their life, about what are their hobbies, and then like, oh, you like coffee, do you want to know how to make a coffee? Yeah, do you want to learn how to do it? Do you want to be a barista? And kind of things, we have a conversation related to that. And then when I see, he has a passion on coffee, and then we just do the training for barista, and then, oh, cool, they can do it, and then they can work as barista there. So another experience of me is that I have a friend. He has cerebral palsy, so he cannot control his hands or and his neck, a lot of his body, except his foot. So he has passion in IT and coding. So when I ask him, "What do you love?" I love IT. Okay, and then what do you do? I try to learn how to make a website. So you do coding? Yeah, I do it. And then like when we help him, Derry, his name is Derry, we help him to learn about how to make a good website and kind of things. And then after that, he get offered to Apple Academy. And then like he get hired. Oh my God,
Wow.
cool. And then like we right now Apple Academy in Batam is trying to make a research about how to make a good laptop or personal computer for dairy based on their physical impairment, and how to make it accessible for him. Like, oh, cool, they make a custom uh, laptop right now for dairy, and it's like, cool. So this is that's how I see the patient, by communicate and have a talk with them about their hobbies, about their dreams, about what they want to do and what they do in their free times. And yeah, That's how to do it. And then we try to make it, to connect them. It works.
That's impressive, by the way, the story about your friend. That's so heartwarming to hear, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk a bit more about what are maybe challenges that you've encountered by working in the field of disabilities, and particularly your organization.
Okay. So there are some aspect that becomes a challenge in our organization, that what we encounter for our job, our work here, especially like in the literation of the sign language, that in Indonesia not many people understand about sign language, Indonesian sign language especially, because the back then to 2001, in Indonesia there's a system of sign language. So it was a lot of word of the Indonesian system of sign language. So it's a system, not a language. Most of them are translated from the American Sign Language. And back then, in 2001, the government made the dictionary of it, and then it spread to all of the universities of that has special education, and also to special schools and all of the schools that have deaf children there. But that dictionary made by hearing people, so not really have experience in the sign language, right? And then like in right now, a lot of research related to sign language is studying, and the deaf communities talk to the society that use the Indonesian sign language, not the Indonesian system of sign language. And it's a challenge for us to make the change to use the Indonesian sign language because of that. Because when we want to partner with the schools, many of them refuse to use that. Yeah.
Okay.
But the Indonesian sign language made by the deaf communities, that they know how to make it, and they know how to make it effective, efficient, and a lot of signs comes from the natural gestures. That's from the languages, and also like the literacy of sign language in Indonesian society still lack of that. So we still need to make some classes. So Parakerja makes some sign language class that all of the teachers are deaf people. So we want to make the hearing people have interaction to the deaf communities by have communication directly to the deaf people. That's the language challenge. But for another thing is about the digitalization of the school. So like usually the schools use the just like offline classes. Right now we are trying to make the special school have the e-learning process, that using Parakerja's app, they can have a webinar, the e-learning, they can get contents that can accessible for them. Like when you have a classes, there's the cross captioning for the deaf or the interpreter there, or for people with intellectual disability, we make it simpler. And we started with digital, and it's also like the penetration of digital classes and learning in Indonesia for the special school is still a challenge.
Hi there, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We just wanted to let you know that we are on social media at WeAreGCM, and don't hesitate to follow us. And if you'd like to support us further, we also have a Patreon page. Type in Global Changemakers and decide which tier is best for you. Thank you, and now on with the rest of the episode.
I see. And so there are different, this is maybe not a very informed question on my part, but there are different sign languages depending on the country or the language. Like there's Indonesian Sign Language, American Sign Language, English Sign Language. Is that it?
Yeah, that's different. But in
Okay.
Indonesia, there are two
Yeah,
like pros and cons for the Indonesian Sign Language or Indonesian system of sign language.
I see. Okay, okay. And how similar are they to each other, the different sign languages around the world?
Around the world, you ask?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it will be so different. I
Okay.
mean, like in Indonesia, the sign for uh, name, especially like your left hand is 5,
Mm-hmm.
your right hand is just your thumb and your middle finger do this. But for
Okay.
the American Sign Language, it be just 2 fingers of your both of your hand and you tap it twice, and then it's name.
Oh,
So it's different.
completely different.
Yeah,
I see. Okay.
completely different. So like Indonesian Sign Language and Indonesian system of sign language is also different because a lot of them translated from American Sign Language too.
I see. Okay. Um, I think that what's really impressive in what you're saying, and I think it's important not only in the field you work in, but in other fields, is to actually work and with the people with disabilities, and that they're the ones that are teaching other people, their sign language, for example, that it's not people who can hear. And I remember you already mentioning this when we met a couple months ago, and I thought that that's really important, and I think it's great that you guys do it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that I was wondering is uh, how much of stigma is still around disability? Is it still a taboo topic? What is your opinion on this?
I think right now in Indonesia, the issue of disability is more open, that a lot of people talk about it. A lot of activists from the people with disabilities and non-disabled people talk about this. Like me, I am a non-disabled people, but I work for advocating them for the education for a lot of aspect of disability issue, and I see that the topics of disability is already become not as taboo as what we see a couple years ago. But when I start to work in disability issue on 2014, I still see some. I have the experience that some people still think that autism is like a punishment or the karma for the parents who did criminal things or bad things in their past. So like the back then in 2014, I still see some of stigma like that. That oh, you have children with autism, or maybe like you have a crazy kids because of your bad habit in the past, and then this is the punishment from the God to you, and then oh my God, why is this happening? And then like yeah, the a lot of things happen. We still advocating this, and then like that thing of stigma, I think is decreasing right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good. It's good to hear that it's decreasing.
yeah,
And
but we still see some cases that people still be ashamed of their children with disabilities, and then like they don't show it to people, and yeah,
I see. So it's
like
still like
they are hiding the kids. Yeah,
there's still some work to do.
yeah, still some work to do.
Still, there's always work to do, I feel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Kiki, I want to now go more into your journey as a change maker and maybe a bit of advice you could give to people that are looking to becoming either a social entrepreneur or an activist. So what do you like most about being a social entrepreneur?
What I like the most as the social entrepreneur is that I meet with a lot of people and it's a dynamic, and then like uh, I meet a lot of people that have unique in their life. They have their own stories, and then we can collaborate together, we can make change, we can make a bigger impact with the condition and make change. And then like it's something that's so satisfying for my for myself, especially because like I can give you one of the example that earlier this year on March 2019, I also have experience as people with disability. So I got food poisonings, and then I became I have to use wheelchair for 2 months, and then while I'm in while I was in the wheelchair, I still have to work with people with disability and related to the job opportunities that they have. And then I feel that it's so hard to go to job to go to work because it's not accessible. And then people think that it's hard to have people with disability around you. Like I feel it by myself that I cannot access my own office because there is no ramp, or I have to ask people, please help me because it's not accessible. Or I have to go so far there to get a ramp. And yeah, when it's related to the job, I feel like, okay, I have the experience and I have to make change about this because I know how hard it is, and I just feel it only 2 months. But people with disability who was born with that condition, they have this problem all day long, every day, every year, and every time. So uh, what I like the most is that I have a dynamic life, that it's not flat, and then like we can make change, we can make impact, especially because I also have the experience with it. And yeah.
I find it really interesting that you, for a little bit, you were in the shoes of who you work with and who you work for, and
Yeah.
it does give you a certain perspective on it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. And what is then the most challenging part of being a social entrepreneur?
I think the hardest or the challenge thing to be a social entrepreneurs, that maybe the stigma that people label to me. I mean, like as the non-disabled people, and then I work for people with disability to do a lot of things for people with disability. Many people label me that I am looking for stage. I mean, like you are the disabled people, you don't have experience for that, you just like make disabled people work for you, and then you get popular. And it's like, excuse me, that's not the point of what I do. I mean, I do it so passionate, I am so passionate for this. I love to mingle with people with disability. I love to get hug from people with Down syndrome. I love to talk with sign language with the deaf. I love to hanging out with people on wheelchair. And it's like, why you only see me when I am on the stage? I mean, look at me when on my daily life. And then there's a reason why I work for people with disability. Actually, that at first when I start my journey to disability issue back then to 2014, that I founded ABA Batam as the therapy center for children with autism. Actually, my motivation is to fight for bullying because I am the survivor of bullying, and I know how hard it is to have a life full of bullying. And then like I work for that because when I was kid, it's hard for me to start a communication, to have interaction with people, to play with and socialize with a lot of friends. And why I work for people with autism, because children with autism also have that kind of symptoms that hard for communication, interaction, and socialization. And then when I work for that, it's like it's a life. I can make the parents smile, like after years their autistic kid cannot talk, and then after do therapy with me they can smile, and then they can, yeah, the kid can call her mama, her papa, like it's a life. And another reason that I work for disability issue is because I have a promise to uh, my girlfriend that become a victim of earthquake, that she got 5 amputation and she became disabled people. But then yeah, God lost her, so God called her. But I already have a promise with her that if she survive, I will stay with her whatever her condition is. So when I work for people with disability, I have a personal experience and reason why I do this. That's why I work so hard for the equality of people with disability. But when people label me that way, it makes me sad. So I have to make sure that I still keep my vision on the same track, and yeah, I already get used to it. So like, okay, whatever, I still have to do this kind of things because there's a lot of things to do for the equality for everyone.
It's incredible that people react this way to what you do. And I feel like I'd actually be interested if any of the listeners out there have had something similar, that people sort of think you work on an issue just for your own good and not for the good of others. I'd be interested in hearing your stories. So, send us a message on Instagram or an email. And yeah, tell us your story. I'm interested. And yeah, it's I feel like anything you do, there is going to be someone who has something bad to say about it. And this actually ties well into the quote you said at the beginning. And I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna end the interview with this. But yeah, if you believe in yourself, your abilities, and you believe in what you're doing and your vision, it doesn't really matter what others think, brush it off. And I think you can be very proud of yourself to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Before we leave and before I wrap this up, I wanted to ask if there's any way the listeners can support your organization, and where can they find your organization? Are you guys on social media?
Okay, so you can look for my my organization, Parakerja on Instagram. It's on Parakerja, Parakerja. So it's also on Facebook, Parakerja. And for the website, you can come to our website on www.parakerja.co.id, and you can download our apps too on Android still. Its name is Parakerja. So we are still developing our apps, our companies, and work for a lot and make a lot of contents for the sign language learning, for the consultation, for e-learning on the school, and accessibility, job opportunity, and equality for people with disability. And also, if you want to connect with me on Instagram, you also can go to my Instagram account. It's Rezki Achyana. It is REZKIACHYANA.
I'll link that all
Let's
in
connect and say hi.
Awesome. I'll put that all in the show notes for the listeners. And Kiki, thank you so much for your time today. It was really lovely to talk to you and to get to know more about this field. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, I enjoy this podcast so much. And talk with you, Sophie, is a great talk. I love it. And your spirit to know more about what I do and to spread the awareness about disability issue to all over the world. And thank you for the listener for listening this podcast until the end. Hope we can make change together in our field.
Yes, I agree. Take care, listeners. See you next Tuesday. If you'd like to know more about Global Changemakers and our mission of enabling youth to create a positive impact in their communities, you can visit our website at global-changemakers.net or follow us on social media at WeAreGCM. And if you'd like to support us further, go check out our Patreon page at Global Changemakers and help us have a greater impact. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Young Changemakers. See you next Tuesday.